Hello, and welcome back to the channel. I am currently reporting from Texas. Now, for those of you who have never been to Texas, a lot of it looks like this. Plenty of open, green space, and it's pretty different than Los Angeles and even Vegas for that matter. Those cities can feel really cramped sometimes. A lot of places in Texas are quite the opposite, and this is no exception. I'm reporting from Dallas, and the reason why is because there's a brand new poker room here in Dallas called Palace Poker, which is this building right behind me. I've never been here, so I'll make sure to show you guys around this new room. But they're starting out with a live stream, and I got invited to be part of their first ever live stream. It's a 5,100 game, or maybe bigger, I'm actually not too sure. But it's an action-packed lineup, and I figured, why not? Not many better things to do on a random Tuesday than play high-stakes, no-limit Texas Hold'em, in Texas, of all places. Now, before we jump in there, I wanted to give you all a friendly reminder that on November 15th, I'm hosting another online meetup game. Stakes will be 50 cents, $1, so nothing too crazy, but still enough to have a good time. And as per usual, I'll be streaming it on my YouTube channel. So if you guys want to join, make sure to scan the QR or hit the link down below. Both work, and I'll see you all November 15th, 4 p.m. Pacific. All right, with that out of the way, let's go gamble, and I'll check in with you guys right after. Here we go. Alright guys, here we go, playing 25, 50, 100 in Dallas on this new stream called Palace Poker. In the first interesting hand, there's a raise from Doc Hollywood from first position. There's a couple of callers, and then it gets to me in the final blind, looking down at 6-4 suited. Very easy hand to just call or raise with, especially multi-way, but instead of doing that, I take the very aggressive route with a hand that's probably not recommended in this spot. But I decide to raise it up to $3,000. Now it gets to Doc Hollywood on my left. He's the initial raiser. He jams all in for 8,000 and change. Everyone else folds. When it gets back around to me, I of course will not be folding, not just because we're getting a good price to call with any two cards at this point, but also because Doc Hollywood is the guy who invited me into this game, and we're good buddies, usually give each other very light action. As you can tell, he's got King Jack offsuit, so it's not much better, but yeah, I make the call, and I'm happy to see that we have two live cards. Can't be that bad. We've got like 40% chance to win a pot that's 18K. However, that 40% goes right out the window when he flops top two and then turns a boat. Yeah, that'll do it. No way for me to win now. The queen on the river is irrelevant, and we start off the session by giving Doc Hollywood a nice welcome bonus to Palace Poker, as it's his first stream here too. Yeah, thanks for the invite, man. Very nice. In the next one, I have a much less embarrassing holding, King, Queen of Spades. That's usually going to be a good hand no matter what, so I raise it up to $1,000. We get a re-raise from JD in the third blind. He makes it 4,000 to go, and now Jungle Man cold calls the 4,000. Back to me now, and considering that JD might be bluffing here sometimes, not too often if I have a good read on the situation, but at least sometimes, I think it's okay to use this hand as a squeeze candidate, especially because Jungle Man just cold calls, so that feels like he's got a pocket pair, or probably a hand he's not willing to commit all his chips with. And with the extra 4,000 of incentive in the pot, I decide to use this hand as a candidate for that. So I make it $11,000 now, hoping to get a fold from JD. And even if Jungle Man calls again, that's completely fine since we have position and quite a playable holding. However, JD now jams all in for 28K, which confirms my dreaded suspicion that he was actually not out of line at all. And of course, as you can tell, he's got a real hand, Ace King. Jungle Man thinks for a bit, but eventually folds his pocket nines, and when it gets back around to me, this is a very similar situation as the last hand where I know we're probably behind, but considering the price I'm getting now, of course, can't fold after putting in 11k and only have to put in 17 more. So I toss in the money, fingers crossed he's got something like pocket jacks or maybe ace 5 suited, you know, hands that we stand a chance against, but instead it's ace king, and that is about as bad as it gets. We do flop an open ender, which is nice, but the turn and river bring no additional help, and ace high is going to scoop this pot. Yeah, definitely could have played my hand a bit differently. Sometimes taking the high variance route is fun and it works out and you win a bunch. Other times it looks like this, where you start down a bunch of money after playing king queen and 6-4 suited. But that's okay, the night is young. The only bad thing at this point is I was extremely card dead. Another hour or two goes by before I finally get something worth putting chips in the middle with, and it's king jack offsuit, which is really nothing to write home about. Anyway, in this hand, I am on the button at least. I raise it to $500. Doc Hollywood thinks for a bit and re-raises from the small blind. He makes it $2,500 to go. 3 coin now calls in the big blind, and now it's back to me. Look, Doc Hollywood and 3 coin are not shy at all when it comes to putting chips in the pot, so having position against these two, I'm not going anywhere, even if my hand is, you know, not that great to play multi-way in a re-raised pot. So I toss in some money and we go 3 ways to a board of ace 8-4 rainbow. Obviously nothing going on for me, so I don't really like this flop, but as you guys can tell from Doc Hollywood and 3 coin, they probably also don't like this board, which is why it checks all the way around and we see a turn card. The 7 of spades is an interesting one because I have the king of spades, which is a little something, you know, I can maybe represent spades on the river, and I might be able to get someone off of a pocket pair or something like that if it checks to me again. Doc Hollywood does check it again, but 3 coin now puts in some money. It's really small though, $2,000. This is a quarter of the pot size. And from my experience, this usually means he's got something he likes, but he doesn't love. And for that reason, I decide to float on the button with absolutely nothing in hopes of stealing it on the river. I toss in the money. Doc Hollywood gets out of the way with king 10, and we go heads up to the 9 of spades. At this point, I know that I will have to bluff in order to try winning this pot. Now, will it work? Let's find out. 3 coin thinks for a little bit and eventually checks. Now I think to myself, how much would I bet if I had 2 pair or a flush or, you know, something that's good? And I settle on $6,000, around half pot. I'm trying to make it look like a value bet. I fear that if I go really big, 3 coin might get suspicious and try to make a hero play, but this milky looking size should get the job done, or at least I hope. We never know with 3 coin, he might even raise all in or something ridiculous, but in the end he ends up letting it go, which is quite nice, and we turn this one over as the stand-up game was on. So we collect the pot, steal this one away, and of course avoid paying that nit penalty. In the next one, I raise it up to $500 with ace 9 of clubs. By the way, I'm raising to $500 because the $200 straddle was on in this hand, and in fact, most of the night had the $200 straddle on. So I make it $500 to go. We get 3 callers and go to a flop of king 4 with 1 club. John checks, now it's on me, and even though I don't connect super well with this board, I think it's okay to bet small. We have backdoor clubs, we could represent ace king, and could weed out hands like small pocket pairs and, you know, stuff like that, depending on how the hand develops. So I toss in a bet of $500, around a quarter pot. Doc Hollywood thinks for a bit and now raises on my direct left, and uses a pretty big raise too, $4,600. The other guys fold, it gets back around to me. And even though my hand kind of sucks, especially against a raise, I start thinking to myself, what hand plays this way? If he had a king, I don't see why he would raise. He'd probably want to keep the other players in the pot. Same thing goes for pocket 4s. And if I can somewhat dismiss those holdings, then he's probably got a bluff and he's just trying to steal this one away. Well, you're going to have to try a little bit harder, Doc. I stick around at least for this raise and go to a turn card, which is the queen of clubs, giving me a backdoor nut flush draw, just in case somehow we are up against a better hand, but I still have a feeling that we might be ahead. This time I check it since he raised on the flop. And now Doc shoves all in for nearly $11,000, a pot-sized all-in, putting me in a difficult situation because, yeah, I have this read that maybe I'm ahead, but do I trust my read to the point of putting $11,000 into the middle? I'm not sure, but I think the answer is yes. I had a feeling about what might be going on the flop, and this queen on the turn shouldn't really change anything. In fact, if he did somehow have a queen, I feel like he might even check it back now that he's got some showdown value. So I think about it for a bit and say, whatever. I call, I might have the best hand, and even if I don't, maybe we make a flush. I toss in the money. Doc Hollywood does not seem pleased, and as you can tell, he was trying something with 8 deuce of diamonds. It's not going to work out for him this time unless he can find a pair that's not a club. Instead, we run it twice after I call. First river is the 6 of clubs, second one is another 4. Both boards go to me, and we collect this $33,000 pot after refusing to fold. In the next one, I get dealt my first premium of the entire night, Ace King. Long story short, there was a bunch of raising and re-raising. We ended up going all in versus 3 coin for around 16,000 apiece, which puts the pot at 33,000 and change. We decide to run it twice this time, and the first board brings quite a sweat. It's 10-9-8, but it's all clubs. So he's got bottom set, I've got the nut flush draw. Unfortunately, the turn and river bring no help. The second board comes 10-10-5. Turn card is the last 8 in the deck, giving 3 coin a full house, and that's going to seal the deal. We lose both of these flips and a bunch of money in the process. Nice hand to 3 coin, I guess it's fair. He had the best hand all the way, but of course would have been nice to at least chop or maybe scoop this one. You know, that would have been completely fine with me. Instead, we are stuck quite a bit still as we move to the next one where I've got Ace Jack of diamonds. Unfortunately for me, even though this is a pretty nice hand, Doc Hollywood has got himself Ace King. Bad timing, unfortunately. I 3-bet to 7,000 after a raise. He jams, and I, of course, do not shy away from giving this man action once again. We might have 2 live cards. We might even be ahead. He might have 3 outs if he has like Ace 10 suited. Could be flipping against a pocket pair, or could just be absolutely cooked versus Ace King. 3 outs for me. This is very similar to the King Queen of Spades versus Ace King hand earlier. Not running super hot tonight, and pair that with not really folding whenever I have an excuse to stay in a hand. And it's going to be an expensive night, but maybe, just maybe, we can suck out on this board. It comes 9 high, turn card's a king, and then the river's an ace, so that won't do it. Yeah, nice hand to Doc Hollywood. We give him another double up, but at least we have a nice glass of wine to make me feel a little bit better. Later on, this one comes up where I've got Queen Deuce suited. I make it $500 to go in late position, get a call from Doc Hollywood, JD, and Charlie. So we go 4 ways to a flop of 10-7 deuce. With 1 diamond, I've got bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw. Good bluff candidate, I think, especially on a board that's not too dangerous looking. JD checks, Charlie checks. I continue for a bet of $2,000, which is a pot-sized wager, trying to apply maximum pressure on single pair holdings right away. And of course, good things can develop on future streets. Doc Hollywood folds, JD folds, so that's nice. We get 2 guys out of the way, but Charlie's not done with it just yet. He's got middle pair and sticks around. Turn card is not my favorite. It's the 3 of hearts. Reason this card sucks, not only because it doesn't improve me in any way, but if he's got a 10 or something like pocket 8s, he's probably not going to fold on this kind of turn card. I was hoping for an overcard or maybe a diamond, you know, something that perhaps might make him a little more stressed out, but it's a pretty clean turn card for whatever he called the flop with. Still, when he checks, I decide to keep the pedal to the metal and see if maybe we can get one through. It might take the river, but let's see what happens. The pot's 6,000, I size all the way up. I make it $6,000 to go, a pot-sized wager again. Charlie's not going to have a fun time now unless he's got exactly like King 10 or better. But if I were in his shoes, I would be pretty concerned with just middle pair. Still, he knows I might be bluffing and could definitely be full of it like I am here. But he also knows I could have something like pocket deuces, I could have 2-3 suited, I could have an overpair, I could have all sorts of stuff as the pre-flop raiser. In the end, he thinks better of it and just lets it go, which is quite nice, of course, since we only have like an 11% chance of winning if the hands went to showdown. So there it is. We take this one down by brute force, and that's kind of the story of my night. I never really made a strong hand. I was card dead, and even the times I did have a little something, it just wasn't working. But still, even after the cameras were turned off, the game kept going, so don't go anywhere because we have a few more hands to cover. All right, switching to the table camera now. For this next one, the $200 straddle is on yet again. There's a button open to $700. The small blind folds, and I look down at 8-7 of hearts in the big blind. Could call or re-raise with this kind of hand, especially against a button open. You guys can probably guess which direction I went. I make it 2,500 to go. Only the button makes the call. He's the initial raiser. So we go heads up out of position to a board of Jack 10-6 with 1 heart. We have a straight draw here, but it's not really the strongest straight draw since King Queen is certainly possible, but a 9 would still be a welcome sight. I continue for a bet of $1,700. Worth mentioning, we also have backdoor hearts. My opponent makes the call, which of course I'm not happy to see, but there's still hope depending on what happens. Turn card is the Jack of Diamonds. Not really my favorite, of course. It makes it more difficult to get folds. Even if I had an overpair, I might check at this point. So I decide to do the same with 8 high, and now my opponent bets $4,000. Interesting spot now because of course a fold is completely fine. We've got 8 high out of position and we can't really call with just a straight draw. However, I think this is the kind of player who might bet draws or even a weak hand like 6-7 suited or something like that in hopes of maybe getting a cheaper showdown or perhaps controlling the pot a little bit with a half pot bet here. So with that in mind, I know I might be running into a jack sometimes, but I decide to make an interesting play, let's call it, and check raise up to 12,000. My thinking here is if he's got diamonds, if he's got king queen, if he's got queen 9, all sorts of straight draws or, you know, flush draws, maybe even weak holdings like a 6, all these hands are going to be in a tough spot against a check raise, and even if he does call, we could put in a bet on the river if all the draws miss. And it looks like it might come to that because after some thought, he does put in the money. What have we got ourselves into now? The pot has over $32,000 in it as we go to a river, which I guess is what I was hoping for. It's the deuce of hearts, an absolute blank. Shouldn't change anything at all. And my rationale is now, well, if he's got missed diamonds or a missed straight draw, we could steal this one away with a cheap bluff. So I do assemble a bet of $5,000. Very small, but I'm not trying to target a jack or even a 10 to fold for that matter. Instead, I'd like it if he folded the ace high flush draw or maybe king queen, stuff like that. So I toss in a 5K and he does fold right away, later telling me that he had king queen, and we steal this one away with 8 high after getting some very strange value on the turn. Interesting hand. This next one, though, not nearly as complex. There's a bunch of limps. I make it $2,000 to go with pocket 8s from the big blind. Facing a bunch of limps, pocket 8s are almost always going to be the best hand. However, it gets back around to one of the limpers and he shoves all in for $17,000. This is against Rick, who at this point I believe was stuck quite a bit on the night. And maybe he's just had enough, especially after seeing me raise pretty often with mediocre hands. So I don't necessarily think that our pocket 8s are in trouble, but it's still not a very fun situation when it gets back around to me, because if he's got 2 overs, we're flipping. If he's got a bigger pocket pair, I've only got 2 outs, and that's never fun. But at the same time, he could also have an under pair, right? Like 7s all the way through deuces. I wouldn't be surprised if he limped and then just decides to go with it facing my raise. Questionable whether or not he would do that. I've never really played with him. Maybe one other time, I'm not sure. But point is, pocket 8s are now in a neutral spot, I guess. Maybe not neutral to you, but that's how I felt in the moment. And in the end, I decide to make the call, as I usually do if I feel like it's close. It turns out, though, that it's not close at all. He's got pocket aces. That's right, the old limp re-raise all in with pocket aces. I haven't seen this one in a while, but it works to perfection for Rick, as he's got a $34,000 pot in front of him, and he's got me in terrible shape. We run it just once. It comes 6, 7, 6, queen, king. So yeah, that's not going to help. Aces are good, and pocket 8s go down in flames. It seems like it's just not really meant to be for me tonight. which is fine because the session has come to an end, but we decide to do a 1K PLO flip before calling it a night. We tune in on the river where all 5 community cards are out. There's 7,000 in the middle, meaning 7 players are in this flip. Jungleman has shown the queen high flush on this board, which has 3 clubs. No one can beat that, but my hand is not yet revealed. I turn over the 9 of hearts and then the 9 of clubs. So we've got 2 more cards, and if one of them is the ace of clubs, we're gonna win this pot. Otherwise, it goes to Jungleman, and this seems like a really difficult spot for me to win, but there's hope. I asked Doc Hollywood to flip him over. First one is the king of spades. Second one is the miraculous ace of clubs, which is hilarious. The table has a pretty good time seeing this slow roll, and as you can tell, Jungleman is just absolutely thrilled by all of this. So this was the silver lining in the night. We collect this 1K flip to end the session, and with that, I am signing off, but stay tuned for some final thoughts as always. I hope y'all enjoyed the hands. All right, so that's a wrap for Palace Poker. Being completely honest, I loved the room. I didn't really expect it, but this was one of the nicest poker rooms I've ever been to. If you're in the Dallas area, make sure to stop by and check it out. What I didn't like about it was the result. I ended up losing quite a bit of money. It can't be your day every day, and today definitely felt like it was not my day. Of course, I didn't play very well and gambled a little too much, you know, trying to give action and all that. Sometimes it backfires, but I also ran bad and nothing really that good ever happened. So when that's the case and you're playing high stakes, you're probably going to lose a lot of money, and that's exactly what went down. I was in for, I don't even know how much, but I lost around 60,000 when it was all said and done, which is quite a lot of cash. It hurts, but at the same time, I've been on a pretty good run so far this year. I guess you could say these types of nights are bound to happen. But anyway, that's it for tonight, guys. As always, thank you so much for tuning in and checking out the videos. If you gave it a thumbs up, left a comment, subscribed, or anything like that, I sincerely appreciate it. And I hope to see at least a good amount of you on November 15th online Clubs Poker, my meetup game at 4 p.m. Pacific. All right, guys, until next time, good luck at your local tables. I'll see you all very soon. Peace.